The global electric vehicle race is entering a new phase. For years, the world has watched giants like Elon Musk push the boundaries of electric mobility. From luxury EVs to cutting-edge autonomous technology, the industry has largely been dominated by billion-dollar corporations and expensive innovations. But now, something unexpected is beginning to emerge from Africa. A man whose inventions have repeatedly sparked curiosity, controversy, and admiration is once again making headlines. His name is Maxwell Chikumbutso, and according to recent reports and discussions surrounding his work, he is preparing to unveil a vehicle that could challenge the very economics of electric transportation. Not just another electric car, but potentially the world's most affordable 7-seat electric vehicle. And if the vision behind this project becomes reality, the impact could extend far beyond Africa. Imagine a fully electric family vehicle capable of carrying 7 passengers, designed not for luxury buyers in wealthy nations, but for everyday families in developing economies. A vehicle created with a single bold objective: make electric mobility accessible to millions who have never been able to afford it. For decades, the electric vehicle revolution has been defined by high costs. Many EVs still remain far out of reach for the average household in emerging markets. Even the most affordable models often struggle to compete with low-cost gasoline cars in regions where income levels are significantly lower. But what if someone could break that barrier? What if a 7-seater electric vehicle could be produced at a price point so low that it suddenly makes sense for entire families, rideshare drivers, and small transport businesses? That is the possibility now being discussed around Chikumbutso's latest initiative. The Zimbabwean inventor, already known for bold technological claims and ambitious engineering concepts, has been working for years on a range of energy and transportation technologies through his company Saith Technologies. While many of his earlier announcements generated skepticism from global observers, they also generated immense interest across Africa. Because if even part of his vision proves achievable, the implications could be enormous. Africa, after all, represents one of the fastest-growing transportation markets in the world. Urban populations are expanding rapidly. Millions of families depend on shared taxis, minibuses, and informal transportation systems to move through cities every day. Yet the continent still faces significant challenges when it comes to fuel costs, infrastructure, and environmental sustainability. Electric vehicles promise a cleaner future, but their price tags have kept them largely out of reach. Until now. According to emerging reports surrounding the project, Chikumbutso's new vehicle aims to combine 3 powerful ideas into one platform: affordability, capacity, and energy efficiency. First, the vehicle is designed to seat 7 people, making it practical for families and commercial transportation. Second, the engineering approach reportedly focuses on reducing manufacturing costs dramatically, which could place the vehicle in a price category far below most existing EVs. And third, the vehicle may integrate elements of the alternative energy systems that Chikumbutso has spent years developing. If these systems perform as claimed, they could significantly reduce charging costs and energy consumption, potentially allowing the car to operate in regions where traditional EV infrastructure is still limited. For many analysts watching the African technology ecosystem, this is exactly the type of innovation the continent needs. Not just expensive cutting-edge prototypes designed for wealthy markets, but practical solutions built for real economic conditions. Because the truth is simple: electric mobility will only truly transform the world when it becomes affordable for the majority of people, not just early adopters. And that is where this project becomes fascinating. Consider the current EV market. Most electric vehicles today fall into one of 2 categories. On one side are premium vehicles produced by companies like Tesla. These cars deliver impressive technology, but often carry high price tags. On the other side are compact entry-level EVs designed for urban commuting. These vehicles may be cheaper, but they usually sacrifice passenger capacity and long-distance practicality. 7-seat electric vehicles, however, are still relatively rare and expensive. Families that need space often have no choice but to continue using gasoline or diesel vehicles. But if Chikumbutso's project succeeds, that gap could finally be addressed. A budget-friendly 7-seater EV could immediately attract massive demand across Africa, Asia, and other emerging markets. Think about the scale of that opportunity. Millions of taxi operators, millions of ride-sharing drivers, millions of large families who need space for passengers but cannot afford expensive vehicles. For them, an affordable electric seven-seater would not just be a new product. It would be a completely new economic tool. Transportation costs could drop dramatically. Fuel expenses could disappear. Maintenance costs could fall thanks to the simplicity of electric drivetrains. And suddenly, the financial equation of daily mobility could shift. Of course, turning this vision into reality will not be easy. Designing a vehicle that is both affordable and reliable requires careful engineering, supply chain coordination, and large-scale manufacturing capability. Even global automotive giants struggle with these challenges. But Chikumbutso's supporters argue that disruptive innovation often begins in unexpected places. History is full of examples where industries were reshaped not by the largest companies, but by innovators who approached problems differently. And that is exactly what many observers believe is happening here. Instead of trying to compete with luxury EV brands, this project focuses on a completely different mission: accessibility, affordability, and real-world practicality. The potential ripple effects could extend even further. If the vehicle becomes widely adopted, it could accelerate the growth of local EV infrastructure across multiple African countries. Charging networks could expand. Battery technology investments could increase. Local manufacturing ecosystems could emerge around the production of electric vehicles and components. In other words, a single affordable EV platform could become the foundation for an entirely new industry across the continent. And that possibility is what makes this story so compelling. Because when you look closely at the global electric vehicle revolution, one truth becomes clear. The next major breakthrough may not come from Silicon Valley or Europe. It may come from innovators working in regions that have the most to gain from affordable technology. And right now, all eyes are quietly beginning to watch what Maxwell Chikumbutso might reveal next. Because if his budget seven-seater EV truly reaches the market, it won't just be another car. It could become the moment when electric mobility finally starts to belong to everyone. And as development continues behind the scenes, new details about the vehicle's design, performance targets, and production strategy are slowly beginning to surface. What makes the project particularly intriguing is the philosophy behind it. Unlike many electric vehicles designed primarily for wealthy urban buyers, this new seven-seat EV is reportedly being built with a completely different audience in mind: families, transport operators, and everyday commuters who rely on affordable mobility. That means durability becomes just as important as innovation. The vehicle is expected to prioritize practicality, strong suspension for rough roads, simple maintenance systems, and interior space that can comfortably accommodate multiple passengers. In many African and developing world cities, vehicles are not just personal transport, they are economic lifelines. A single seven-seat car can operate as a taxi, a rideshare vehicle, a delivery transporter, or even a school shuttle. This is where the concept behind the vehicle becomes powerful. If a reliable seven-seat EV can operate at significantly lower running costs than gasoline vehicles, the financial benefits could be immediate. Fuel expenses, which represent a large portion of operating costs for transport drivers, would dramatically decrease. Electric motors also contain fewer moving parts than traditional engines, potentially reducing long-term maintenance costs. For drivers who depend on their vehicles for daily income, those savings could be transformative. But the innovation may go even further. For years, Maxwell Chikumbutso has spoken about alternative energy systems designed to operate differently from conventional battery-powered electric vehicles. While details remain limited, supporters claim these systems could allow vehicles to operate with extremely low energy consumption compared to traditional EVs. If even part of this concept becomes viable in the seven-seat vehicle, it could create a major advantage. One of the biggest concerns surrounding EV adoption in developing regions is charging infrastructure. In many areas, reliable charging stations are still limited. But if a vehicle can travel longer distances on less energy or integrate unique charging solutions, It becomes far more practical for regions where infrastructure is still growing. This is why the industry is quietly watching developments around this project. Because the success of affordable electric transportation is not just about building cars. It's about designing vehicles that work within real-world economic conditions. Many analysts believe the next stage of the EV revolution will be defined not by luxury technology, but by cost efficiency. The company leading this initiative, Saith Technologies, has repeatedly emphasized its focus on engineering solutions tailored to emerging markets. Instead of copying Western automotive models, the goal appears to be creating an entirely new category of electric mobility. Vehicles that are affordable, durable, energy efficient, and scalable for millions of users. If the 7-seat EV reaches production at the price levels many supporters are predicting, it could create massive demand across multiple continents. Think about regions like Southeast Asia, South America, and large parts of Africa. These markets are filled with families and transport businesses that need vehicles capable of carrying multiple passengers, but cannot afford high-end electric models. A budget-friendly EV designed specifically for these environments could quickly become a dominant transportation solution. But another interesting factor is timing. The global automotive industry is currently facing a massive transition toward electrification. Governments around the world are introducing stricter emissions regulations, encouraging manufacturers to move away from gasoline and diesel vehicles. At the same time, consumers are becoming more aware of fuel costs and environmental impact. This creates the perfect moment for a disruptive innovation. While companies like Tesla continue to push technological boundaries with high-performance EVs, there is still a massive gap in the market for affordable multi-passenger electric vehicles. That gap is exactly where Chikumbutso's project could find its greatest opportunity. Because in many parts of the world, the question is no longer whether electric vehicles will dominate transportation. The real question is who will build the EVs that ordinary people can actually afford. If the answer turns out to be an inventor from Zimbabwe, it would represent a remarkable shift in the global innovation landscape. For decades, technological breakthroughs in the automotive industry have largely come from the United States, Europe, Japan, and more recently China. But innovation is no longer limited by geography. Engineering talent is emerging everywhere. And sometimes the most powerful ideas come from those trying to solve problems that others have overlooked. For Chikumbutso, the mission appears to be about more than just selling vehicles. It's about creating economic empowerment through technology. An affordable 7-seat EV could allow thousands of drivers to start transportation businesses. It could enable families to travel more efficiently. It could reduce fuel dependency in regions where gasoline prices fluctuate dramatically. And perhaps most importantly, it could demonstrate that world-changing technology can be developed anywhere. Still, many questions remain. How soon could production begin? What will the final price actually be? How will the vehicle perform in real-world conditions? And can the manufacturing capacity scale quickly enough to meet potential demand? These questions are exactly why the project continues to attract global curiosity. Because if the answers begin to align with the ambitious vision being described, the result could be one of the most significant transportation breakthroughs of the decade. And behind the scenes, development teams are reportedly continuing to refine prototypes, test engineering systems, and explore potential partnerships that could bring the vehicle to market faster than many expect. The next phase will likely determine whether this concept remains an ambitious vision or becomes a practical reality that reshapes transportation across entire regions. Because if a truly affordable 7-seat electric vehicle arrives in 2026, the consequences could extend far beyond the automotive industry. It could influence energy markets. It could accelerate electric infrastructure development. It could inspire a new generation of inventors across Africa and beyond. And as more whispers about prototype testing and manufacturing plans begin circulating through technology circles, one thing is becoming increasingly clear. Something significant may be quietly taking shape. And the moment the world finally gets its first real look at this vehicle, the conversation around electric mobility could change overnight. Because the unveiling of a vehicle like this would not simply be about design, range, or horsepower. It would be about access. For decades, the automobile industry has largely followed the same pattern. New technologies appear first in high-end vehicles, then slowly trickle down into more affordable models over time. But that process often takes years, sometimes even decades. What makes this potential breakthrough so unusual is that it aims to flip that entire model upside down. Instead of starting with luxury and moving toward affordability, the goal appears to be starting with affordability itself. A vehicle designed from the beginning to serve the majority of people rather than the wealthiest few. If that strategy works, it could introduce a completely new way of thinking about electric vehicle development. Imagine a vehicle that doesn't rely on expensive luxury materials or complex design features that dramatically raise production costs. Instead, every component is engineered with a single guiding principle: efficiency and practicality. Interior materials might prioritize durability over luxury. Engineering systems might focus on reliability rather than flashy features. And the vehicle's architecture could be optimized to reduce manufacturing complexity, making large-scale production more achievable. For millions of potential buyers, those priorities actually matter far more than premium features. Because when people purchase a vehicle for family transportation or income generation, reliability and cost often matter more than brand prestige. And that reality is exactly what this project seems designed to address. The global EV industry has long struggled with the challenge of battery costs. Batteries remain the single most expensive component in most electric vehicles. Reducing that cost while maintaining acceptable driving range is one of the biggest engineering puzzles in the automotive world. If the design philosophy behind this 7-seat vehicle includes innovative energy management systems, it could help solve part of that puzzle. That is why many observers continue to study the technological ideas presented by Maxwell Chikumbutso. Throughout his career, he has consistently claimed to be developing alternative energy solutions that operate differently from traditional systems. While the global scientific community has debated many of those claims, the curiosity surrounding his work has never faded, because the potential payoff is simply too large to ignore. If even a fraction of those ideas translate into practical technology, they could dramatically reshape how energy-powered machines operate. And if those concepts are integrated into a family-sized electric vehicle, the results could be particularly powerful. Picture a 7-seat EV capable of traveling long distances while consuming significantly less energy than typical electric cars. That would immediately make it attractive to drivers who rely on their vehicles for daily transportation businesses. Rideshare drivers, taxi operators, and delivery companies could see enormous financial benefits. Operating costs could drop dramatically, and lower costs could allow drivers to earn more while charging passengers less. In many cities, transportation is one of the largest daily expenses for residents. Affordable electric vehicles could reduce those costs across entire urban populations. The ripple effects could spread through local economies. Lower transportation costs can improve access to jobs. They can increase mobility for families. They can allow businesses to move goods more efficiently. And when you multiply those benefits across millions of people, the economic impact becomes enormous. But there is another dimension to this story that makes it even more fascinating. Africa has long been viewed primarily as a consumer market for global technology companies. Smartphones, vehicles, electronics, and software platforms have historically been imported from other parts of the world. However, that dynamic is slowly beginning to change. Across the continent, a new generation of engineers, entrepreneurs, and innovators is emerging, and many of them are no longer content with simply using technology created elsewhere. They want to build their own. If a groundbreaking electric vehicle emerges from Zimbabwe, it could become a powerful symbol of that shift, a signal that technological leadership can come from anywhere, and that innovation is no longer limited to traditional global tech centers. The company behind the project, Saith Technologies, has repeatedly emphasized its commitment to developing technologies that serve African markets first. That approach is important because Africa's transportation needs are unique. Road conditions vary widely. Energy infrastructure differs between regions. And purchasing power often requires extremely efficient product design. A vehicle built specifically with those realities in mind could outperform imported vehicles that were originally designed for entirely different environments. And if the price point becomes as competitive as supporters believe it might, the demand could be explosive. Because once a technology becomes affordable enough, adoption can happen very quickly. We have seen this pattern before with mobile phones. For years, many experts believed advanced communication technology would spread slowly across developing regions. But once affordable smartphones became available, adoption skyrocketed. Within a decade, billions of people were connected. The same phenomenon could occur with electric vehicles. Once the cost barrier falls, millions of drivers could transition away from gasoline transportation far faster than many experts expect. And that possibility raises another interesting question. If affordable EVs begin appearing across emerging markets, how will the established automotive industry respond? Companies that have invested billions into high-end electric vehicles may suddenly find themselves competing with far cheaper alternatives. And history shows that disruptive technologies often come from outside the established industry leaders. That is what makes the potential arrival of a budget 7-seat EV so intriguing. It represents the possibility of a completely different competitive strategy. Instead of competing in the luxury EV segment, the focus shifts toward dominating the largest market of all, everyday transportation. Because while luxury EV buyers represent an important early market, the real global demand lies in affordable mobility. Billions of people around the world still rely on gasoline vehicles simply because electric alternatives remain too expensive. But the moment that equation changes, the speed of adoption could be extraordinary. And somewhere in the middle of this global transition, the work of an inventor from Zimbabwe continues to attract curiosity. Behind closed doors, engineers may be refining designs, testing components, and evaluating production possibilities. Each improvement bringing the project one step closer to reality. And as more attention begins to build around the concept of a truly affordable 7-seat electric vehicle, one thing becomes increasingly clear. The world may soon witness a new chapter in the electric mobility revolution. One that is not driven solely by massive corporations or billion-dollar research labs. It could become the beginning of a movement that redefines what innovation truly looks like in the 21st century. Because the real power of a breakthrough is not just the technology itself, it's who the technology serves. For decades, the world has witnessed incredible engineering achievements. Faster cars, smarter vehicles, and increasingly sophisticated electric systems have all pushed the boundaries of what transportation can do. But at the same time, billions of people are still waiting for technology that simply makes life more affordable and more accessible. That is why the concept of a budget-friendly 7-seat electric vehicle has captured so much attention. If a practical EV design for families and everyday transport operators becomes widely available, it could trigger a transformation that reaches far beyond the automotive industry. Think about what happens when transportation becomes dramatically cheaper. Small businesses gain new opportunities. Drivers can increase their income. Families can travel more freely. Entire cities can reduce pollution and fuel dependency. And over time, these small changes compound into something much larger: economic momentum. This is why many observers believe the future of electric mobility will not be defined solely by luxury EV brands or high-performance sports cars. Instead, the real revolution may come from vehicles that solve everyday problems. Affordable vehicles. Reliable vehicles. Vehicles designed for the majority of the world's population. And if this ambitious project reaches the roads, it could become one of the most important symbols of that shift. Because when people hear the name Maxwell Chikumbutso, they often think about bold ideas that challenge conventional thinking. Now the world is waiting to see whether one of those ideas can take physical form: a 7-seat electric vehicle capable of delivering mobility at a price point millions can afford. If it succeeds, the implications could stretch across continents. A single affordable EV platform could inspire new manufacturing ecosystems. It could encourage governments to invest more heavily in electric infrastructure. It could motivate young engineers across Africa to pursue their own ambitious technological visions. And perhaps most importantly, it could demonstrate that innovation is not limited to Silicon Valley, Europe, or East Asia. Great ideas can emerge anywhere. And sometimes, the innovations that change the world the most are the ones designed for the people who need them the most. For now, the project remains a developing story. Prototypes, engineering tests, and manufacturing plans are still part of an unfolding process. But the possibility alone has already sparked conversations across technology circles, automotive analysts, and entrepreneurs watching the global EV race. Because if the world's most affordable 7-seat electric vehicle truly arrives, it won't just introduce a new car to the market. It will introduce a new vision for the future of transportation. One where clean energy mobility is no longer a luxury. One where families, drivers, and communities everywhere can participate in the electric revolution. And if that moment comes in 2026, it may mark the point when the global EV movement stops being a trend for a few and becomes a transformation for everyone. So, as the world continues to move toward an electric future, many eyes are quietly watching what happens next. Because somewhere behind the scenes, engineers and innovators are working on ideas that could reshape the roads of tomorrow. And when that 7-seat electric vehicle finally rolls into the spotlight, it may not just represent a new machine.